Our day is not over just yet.
Woohoo! USA! USA!
We have an action-packed hour for you 6 p.m. drivers.
Would I rather be feared or loved? Easy, both. I want people to be afraid of how much they love me.
Matt Skraby wraps up a full day of live and local sports talk.
And that is the whole problem with aliens. You just can't trust them. Occasionally you meet a nice one, but usually they turn out to be some kind of big lizard.
The Skraby Show starts now on 97.3 The Fan.
Hello and welcome into the Skraby Show for January 21st, 2026. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. We have a few things to talk about. We're going to continue our conversation on the whole salary cap thing, salary floor thing. We got into it at the beginning of Gwen and Chris, and it's going to be ugly, but we'll talk a little bit more about that in just a second. Also, before we get into I wanted to give a couple updates on a former Padre player and a current Padre player, because one has both have injuries, one way worse than the other. So we will talk about that. Also, the Texans, my cousin's from Houston, and I've been seeing him post. He wants CJ Stroud gone from the Texans. And the Texans have a big decision to make on CJ Stroud, because after this year, he's going into his fifth year. Or 2026 is his last year of the rookie contract. They have to extend the fifth year to him, but they have a decision to make. They have a huge decision to make. Man, I can't say the word decision, but we'll talk about that. And yes, we'll talk a little bit more about Naomi Osaka at the end of the show. And then we have a daily gripe. I actually don't have a gripe at the moment. I have a few that I'm toying with in my head, but I haven't actually chosen which one that I wanted to go with today. But let's start with these two Padres, one former, one current player. And we didn't really talk about the news yesterday, but Ha-Seong Kim is out 4 to 5 months following hand surgery. So he signed with the Braves, and he was supposed to be their starting shortstop. He was supposed to be healthy. He had an injury-filled year last year with the Rays, and then he got let go by the Rays after signing a pretty good deal. And then he went to the Braves, and he did okay with the Braves. Like, he finished the season pretty strong, and so they brought him back, and they decided that they were going to make him the starting shortstop. And then he has hand surgery, and he's out 4 to 5 months. That is brutal. It doesn't seem, I don't know what has happened to Ha-Seong Kim since he left the Padres, but he's been injured a lot since he left the Padres. And I got to think, as the Braves, I mean, you already had a terrible year last year, one of the worst years in franchise history last year. And now you're going to start before spring training without your shortstop. So that's not a good feeling if I'm the Braves at all. But it's just a good thing. I know people wanted to bring Ha-Seong Kim back here in free agency. I don't know if he would have hurt his hand, but I'm just glad the Padres don't have to deal with this hand injury that Ha-Seong Kim has. Sung-Moon Song, the player that the Padres signed at the beginning of the month, he is to miss about 4 weeks recovering from an oblique injury. Now, we don't really know that like what his role is going to be for the team. I don't think it's going to be an everyday role, at least off the bat. I think they're going to work him in there. They're going to let him get, used to the major league game, because this is the first time that he will be playing Major League Baseball. But the oblique injury, not great. They do say that he should be ready in time for spring training to start, or just after spring training started. So hopefully everything goes well with the oblique. I'm not really, I don't like the oblique injuries, because the oblique injuries are dangerous and you never know how long they're going to take to heal. Now, I've always kind of teased the oblique injury because it seems like an injury that is so minor, but it's not. I have done something in my life where I have pulled a muscle in my rib area, and it's hard. It's hard to do anything after you do that. So I understand why an oblique injury is something that will keep him out for a while, but they're really, really touchy, and they can just linger and linger and linger. So let's hope there is no lingering going on with this oblique injury for Sung-Moon Song. And again, he should be ready to go by spring training or just after spring training starts. Let's go back a little bit to what we talked about last night, which is Major League Baseball, this whole salary cap thing. Buster Olney saying that, maybe rank and file players would be willing to do a salary cap. Maybe he doesn't know. He's had some guys pull him aside and say, hey, it's not the worst idea in the world. He didn't commit to anything like, yes, this is going to happen. But I live in this weird world of I want a salary cap, but I don't want the owners to benefit from a salary cap because it allows them to spend less money because they're not going to have to compete with the rest of the league and try to outbid all the other teams for a player. But the owners are going to benefit because they're going to save money on payroll. Now, as with the salary cap, in my mind, there has to be a salary floor. If you do not have a salary floor, then there's no point in having a salary cap, in my opinion, because the salary cap is going to be there so that the Dodgers and other teams, mainly the Dodgers, can't just sign every player for whatever amount of money they get. That's what the salary cap is for. But the salary floor, it should be in the 150, 160, 170 payroll, 170 million. It should be something like that. Because then you are truly getting teams to bid against each other. You're getting teams to pay attention to what money they're spending, and you're leveling the playing field a little bit. And like I said last night, Shohei Ohtani is one of a kind, and he is one of the greatest money makers that baseball has right now. And I think we are talking about all of this because of the Shohei Ohtani signing. Like when it first came out, it was crazy. It was crazy that he deferred like most of his salary, which I still think is crazy, but it's within the rules. So the Dodgers, they did nothing wrong there, and they're doing nothing wrong by signing everyone. What I think is wrong with the system is the free market that baseball is in right now, where it doesn't matter if you're a team that can spend money, you're just going to be behind always because you don't have as much money as the Dodgers and the Yankees. So that's why they need to come with a salary cap and they need to come with a salary floor. I don't know that they're going to get the salary cap or floor in. I really don't. I think that some of those ideas out there are good in theory, but I don't know if they're practical in when you use them in real life. So I'm sure that owners, if they had a salary floor, they would try to find some way to save money on it. Like there are some owners, I should say some owners, and we know who those owners are, but they are like when the article from The Athletic and Evan Drellick says that owners are enraged by the Kyle Tucker signing. It has nothing to do with their team's competitiveness. It has everything to do with how much they're going to have to pay people in free agency. So I don't believe for 1 second that the enraged owners, and that's how I imagine them being enraged, by the way, I don't believe for a second they care that Kyle Tucker is on the Dodgers. I think they care that Kyle Tucker is going to push salaries up and it's going to make things more expensive for teams. And it's, Katrina says, can you explain a salary floor? Meaning basically you have to spend a certain amount of money in order to play. Like you can't just spend $60 million on your roster and try to compete with that all year. If you're going to have like, say a salary cap, let's just throw out a number, $350 million. That's the salary cap. Well, then the salary floor needs to be, and again, I'm just throwing out numbers, $175 million. So every team has to have a roster of at least $175 million. So that's where the salary floor is. And the salary floor, again, is there so that owners can't get cheap and they can't try to control the market price of players out there. And there's just so many facets to this that is confusing. And you got the TV money, or the Dodgers, the Cubs, the Red Sox, the Yankees. Are they going to want to give up their TV revenue contracts? No. Can Major League Baseball ask them to share their TV revenue contracts? Yeah. Will they share their revenue contracts? No. But they do have to figure out something with the TV deals, because that's mainly how the NFL is funded, rosters, is through TV contracts and things like that. So, and all the teams, they don't have regional sports networks. It's just CBS, Fox, NBC, and Prime. But it's not going to be easy. And I do not expect these teams to just roll over. But again, those were just my outstanding thoughts on what we talked about last night. And we still have a year to go. We still have this full year of baseball ahead of us. And I'm excited for this year. And I am looking forward to seeing what the Padres can do this year. I'm really looking forward to getting into spring training so that we can start seeing baseball and talking about baseball. I'm already thinking about the first push notification that I get from the MLB app that tells me the first lineup of the year. Once we get to that, I think we'll have a better understanding of things, and I believe we'll have more players on the team. But it's just something that we all need to be aware of, is this CBA negotiation after the 2026 season. All right. I am Matt Skraby. This is the Skraby Show, 97.3 The Fan. I'll be back shortly. We're going to talk about Chris's positive Padres take. So that's on the other side of the Skraby Show.
Jack, when you look back on 75,
I think I just figured out my daily gripe. So stick around because that will be at the end of the show around 6:50 or so. But I think I got a good one. I thought it may have been too gross, but I don't think it's that gross. So I'm going to talk about that for the Daily Gripe. If you're just tuning in for the first time, you have no idea. Daily Gripe is what I end the Skraby show with, and it's something that irks you throughout your day. So it could be anything. It's mostly not serious stuff. It's mostly minor life inconveniences, but I like to get it out and I like to bring the gripe to everyone. It was like one of the first things I thought about when I was doing or when I was told I was going to get a show segment wise is I got to do something like this. I got to do something Daily Gripe. That's perfect. I love it. I love the Daily Gripe. So it comes from my heart, everyone. It comes from my heart. I want to shout out Cole on the chat because Cole is said that he burned his fingers and he doesn't have any burn cream. He burned his fingers cooking and he doesn't have any burn cream. So everybody out there, make sure you have burn cream in your house in case you burn your fingers. Which, by the way, if we're talking about burning something, over the weekend, I ate a soup. It was actually top ramen that I just made really quick because I was starving. And the microwave that I used, I'd never used before. And so when I usually like the top ramen soup. This is probably too much information about myself, but whatever. I like the top ramen soup, like kind of the noodles not all the way softened. I kind of like the crunchiness. So I put it in for less time so all the noodles don't do their noodle thing. And this microwave must have been the strongest microwave I think I've ever used in my entire life because I went to go grab the thing out of the microwave, the bowl, and I singed my hands. I singed them. It hurt so bad. I didn't drop the bowl. I didn't even pick up the bowl. That's how hot it was. But I guess maybe I should take my own advice and go with burn cream. Lou says aloe. Aloe is a good thing as well. Richard says, love the Skraby show. Thank you, Richard. George has a gripe. People that don't say thanks when you open a door for them. That's actually a really good gripe, George. I find this often, actually. I always say thank you because I know it's very nice. Dominic has a personal gripe. I have a personal gripe. My parking spot is behind my house in the alley. A one-car, one-way alley. People who park in said alley to load groceries or pick someone up and block the alley. That is annoying. I used to live in this place. Here in San Diego in El Cajon, off El Cajon Boulevard. And my parking spot was in the alley in the back. And there was always something blocking the alley. It was so annoying. Every time I needed to leave for work, I had to go ask someone to move their work truck or move the trash truck or something like that. I understand the alley pain, Dominic. And thank you for joining us from Baltimore. Joseph says, can we talk about how Mexican mothers can put their hand fully into the burner and not feel anything? If that's true, that's kind of crazy. Oscar says, Skraby, good luck on your sodium intake. Absolutely right. I don't have top ramens as much as I used to anymore. This was just like a treat, but I understand it's a lot of sodium in those top ramen things. All right. Oh, Joseph, one last thing before I get into the positive Padres. Joseph says, or someone who doesn't walk faster when you're holding the door open for them. Yes. Like people that just take their sweet time crossing streets, getting into doorways, all of that stuff. Ridiculous. I try to get across the street as fast as possible. Cole says it's true. My mother and grandmother-in-law have no hand feeling. Oh, wow. That's kind of cool, actually. All right. Chris had a positive Padres segment earlier on Gwynedd Chris, and he makes a good point. And his point was when you look at the Padres roster right now, you see a team that should be able to compete as is right now. And so I'm not sure I'm seeing a lot of people. I'm not seeing a ton of people being worried about this roster and worried about this team as of right now. But when you're looking at the Padres, they do, on paper and at face value, have a really strong roster. You got to think that you're going to get Jackson Merrill back for the full year. So that's great. You got Ramon Laureano to start the year, and that's great. You got Manny. Xander, he's a wild card. I'm not sure I'm not sure what the season is going to bring, this 2026 season. If last year was any indication, Xander got a lot better at the end of the year. Started in the middle of the year, kind of reversing the course on the bad season that he was having. So maybe we get that Xander Bogaerts, but you got to think that he's at least going to contribute. Michael King is back. You got Mason Miller as your closer. You got Joe Musgrove coming back. David Morgan's kind of an under the radar type pitcher. Bradley Rodriguez is one of those under the radar type pitchers. You got Randy Vasquez. You pretty much, if you look at the Padres roster, you see a pretty good framework. And all they need to do is fill around the edges. Maybe one more starting pitcher if they can. I don't necessarily even know that they need to make moves for relief pitching, but you can never have enough pitching. Oh yeah, I'm looking at Jason Adam should be back at some point throughout the year. So I'm not worried about this roster as much as I was last year. There aren't many holes on this roster that I think are too big to patch. And you lose a couple people like Dylan Cease, you lose him. You're probably going to lose Luis Arraez because he's going to go somewhere else in free agency. But those are players. Dylan Cease, I know people don't have the same view on Dylan Cease that I do. I thought, he wasn't the ace that we needed him to be last year, but he also started every game. He had, if not led the league in strikeouts, I think Tarek Skubal led the league in strikeouts, but he was top 3 in strikeouts. Lou says we're all stuck in the let's compare ourselves to the Dodgers lineup syndrome. Okay. I can get behind that a little bit. It is hard to look at the Dodgers lineup and not compare, but I'm going to say the old cliche thing of they still have to play the games. And I say that half not believing it because the team is stacked, but they do still have to play the games. Kyle Tucker, let's just be honest. Kyle Tucker was not good last year. He did not help the Cubs as much as the Cubs thought he was going to help the Cubs. So maybe this is Kyle Tucker and who he is, and the Dodgers overpaid for Kyle Tucker. Only time will tell on that thing. But some of the players on the roster of the Dodgers roster are aging. Mookie, Freddie Freeman, Shohei Ohtani's aging. He's going to be good for a long time. But Shohei Ohtani is aging. Like, there could be a similar look to what the season was last year where the Padres have a chance to get the division. And if they have a chance to get the division this time around, then they don't deserve the playoff spot because you have to take advantage of the division this year if it's there. Johnny, based on the previous years, it's not going to matter who we get offensively if Tatis, Machado, and Bogaerts don't play to the level they should. You're right. And I think this year, 2026, is the year. I've been saying it for years, but the superstars have to superstar this year. It was not that case for a lot of stretches last year. Manny had a bad stretch. Fernando had a really bad stretch for months. That is what is going to make the team go. if those guys, the Michael King, the Joe Musgrove, the Manny Machado, the Xander Bogaerts, I'll even throw Jake Cronenworth in there, the Fernandos, the Jackson Merrills of the world. But if we're looking at absolute players that need to have the season of their lives, we're looking at Manny Machado and Fernando Tatis Jr. I'm thinking that those are the two guys that have to show up this year. Like, this is the year to earn your money. I'm not going to say keep, but earn your money. Emilio says, big-time players have not shown up when it matters, especially in the playoffs. I've been thinking a lot about that. I've been thinking so much about how the stars disappear in the playoffs. And it's hard for me to think that they just stop being able to play good baseball or be a good hitter. But there is something to it. There is pressure to it. And even though these guys don't get paid a salary in the postseason, which I think a lot of people don't know, they don't get their salary in the postseason. The salary is only for the regular season. They get bonuses and stuff if they make the playoffs. But something does change, and I don't know what it is. I'm not going to say that the players themselves change, but something changes between the regular season and the postseason. And that has to be fixed. That has to be changed. That has to be maybe not top of mind throughout the year. But when you get to the playoffs, you need your big boppers to bop. I don't know if that made any sense, but I said it. KG says, literally April, May, Fernando was putting up the second best numbers in all of baseball. Yeah. Remember last year when we had many conversations about Fernando Tatis Jr. being the MVP of the league for the first 2 months? And then it just disappeared for a while. He started finding it towards the end of the year, but he never found what he had in the beginning of 2025. So I think that they have the framework for a playoff run, but all of those intangibles are important. I have to agree. The intangibles are definitely important of getting to the playoffs and performing in the playoffs. Like now for the Padres and Padres fans and the Padres players themselves, missing the playoffs is a failure, especially with how much money ownership has put into the team and will put into the team. Like they cannot afford a bad year because the window is getting tighter and it's closing a little bit more each year. But now that the expectation is for the Padres to make the playoffs each and every year, the expectation now is to win in the playoffs. And we can go back to 2022 when they went to the NLCS, which was very exciting. But we can go back to, was it 2024? Where the Padres had the lead in the series over the Dodgers, and then they just could not hit the rest of the series. And then last year, they disappeared against the Cubs. So that has to change for this year. Like, it's no longer okay just to make the playoffs, in my mind. You have to win a playoff series this year, and you have to get your offense going this year. I'm not saying anything that's not, a secret, but since it was so articulately, as I'm saying the word articulate, put to me, I think it's a good point. I think it's a really good point that the superstars absolutely have to superstar. All right, I'm looking through some of the... Joseph says, Crony needs to find the Crone zone more often. Yeah, Jake Cronenworth needs to be a big contributor this year. But I think that Jake Cronenworth gets a little bit of a bad rap. I do. I think he's better than his numbers suggest, but situationally sometimes it's bad. It's bad. All right. There's Chris's positive Padres recap segment. I was very excited when Chris said he was positive about the Padres because we're not going to start the year complaining. We're going to start the year happy. How about that, everybody? We're going to have to start the year happy. All right. When we get back, CJ Stroud and Naomi Osaka.
Ben and Woods.
Back here in the Bill House studios on 97.3 The Fan, Matt Skraby. I never told anyone where they could watch or listen, so let's do that right now. You can go to Facebook, 97.3 The Fan. You can go to YouTube, 97.3 The Fan. You can go to The Skraby Show on YouTube, at The Skraby Show, S-K-R-A-B as in boy, Y. And you can go to 97.3 The Fan SD on X, also Matt Skraby on X as well. I keep seeing news about the Buffalo Bills situation, and I keep thinking, thank goodness it's not my team having all these problems. But as you just heard that rejoin, it is kind of wild how Terry Pagula did his thing today. He basically just blamed everything on Sean McDermott and praised Brandon Beane. Now, I was reading earlier today that Brandon Beane during games would go sit in the owner's suite with Pagula and they would chat throughout the game. So maybe that's where Brandon Beane has made his way in and has the stronger relationship, obviously, than Terry Pagula and Sean McDermott. By the way, Sean McDermott's coaching during the game, so he can't be up in the owner's suite. But I don't like it when people have to take the fall because someone doesn't want to admit that they made a mistake, admit that maybe they should have done things a different way. And it seems like what's happening with Terry Pagula and everybody. But I do feel bad for Bills fans, because Bills fans Bills fans are rabid to get their team back into the Super Bowl. And I've been looking, one of my favorite things to do, people know this, I go to Reddit pages for fans of individual teams and I see what people are saying. And a lot of Buffalo Bills fans are kind of angry about this because they thought that they had a good coach. I think they had a good coach. And this is just a rumor. Nothing can be, confirmed with this. But when Sean McDermott had the conversation with the Bills front office about the year, he was pointing out deficiencies in the roster, and other people in the room didn't like it. And so that seems kind of like they're covering their eyes when it comes to having real conversations about the team. But I read that the defensive line was an issue for Sean McDermott. And if you want to compete with a Super Bowl team, you do have to get the players there. No one's talking about Brandon Beane bringing in players that just no one has heard from ever again. No one's talking about the money that he's given out to players that haven't done well. So I just think that sometimes teams need to, I don't think Sean McDermott deserved to be fired. I don't know that Brandon Beane deserves to be fired, but I hate it when the GM stays and the coach goes. Because isn't it ultimately, now if the coach is not coaching well, I understand it. But in this case, isn't ultimately the roster building on the GM? So isn't it the GM's failure that the roster wasn't good enough? And this happens a lot. It happens a lot. It's like when head coaches fire, the wide receiver coach because the wide receivers are struggling. Like that's just a reaction to do something to get people off your back. And I don't know what's in store for the Bills, but I gotta say, Brandon Beane better win a lot of games. Brandon Beane better put some great players on the field because he has not had the greatest draft history. And the whole thing with Keon Coleman is crazy too. We've seen two team owners in the NFL. We've seen something happened with Freddie Peralta. Am I missing news? Am I missing news? Because the Mets are in on Freddie Peralta, but I'm not sure if I'm missing news. But anyway, now I forgot where I was going with that. That is embarrassing. This happens from time to time. Oh, we had two owners in the NFL this year that openly criticized players on their team during the season. So what is happening? If you don't remember, Woody Johnson of the Jets, he got on Justin Fields' case. I'm paraphrasing. but he basically said Justin Fields is the worst quarterback he's ever seen, and he doesn't know how they go forward. And now you got Pagula just straight up trashing the coach and Keon Coleman. So I don't know. I don't understand it. Okay. Peralta is not official. Okay. But the Mets are trying to trade for Freddie Peralta of the Brewers. I know the Padres are in on that as well. That would have been amazing if the Padres could pull something like that off, but everybody keep their eyes on Freddie Peralta. All right. Let's talk CJ Stroud so I can push off Naomi Osaka for another second, because I think this is a conversation that you're going to see a lot around national sports talk. And it's, should the Texans continue on with CJ Stroud as their quarterback? Now, we all know that he had an amazing rookie season. He won Rookie of the Year, threw for over 4,000 yards, 23 TDs, 5 interceptions. He had a completion percentage of 64%, which isn't amazing, but it's not terrible. But each year in the NFL, from 2023 to 2024 to 2025, he's gotten worse. He threw for only 3,700 yards in 2024. He threw for 3 less touchdowns and 7 more interceptions than he did in 2023. And then this year, he only had 19 touchdowns. Now, he missed 3 games due to a concussion, but he had 19 touchdowns, 8 interceptions on the year. So, and he had some fumbles, as we all know. And then he had 4 interceptions in the playoff game against the Patriots. And those aren't reflected in his season stats. But here's the thing with CJ Stroud and the rookie contracts and all that. Like, teams are almost forced into picking up a 5th-year option, which ends up paying the player a lot more than they get throughout the first 4 years of the rookie contract. And I like the way it's set up, because you really need to see what you have before you throw out a ton of money at a player like Sam Bradford, back in the day. That's why they kind of changed it. But teams, if you get to the 4th year and you don't have another option, you're almost forced into picking up the 5th-year option, because you don't have another plan, unless you're going to go back to Davis Mills, but I don't think you're going to do that. So should the Texans keep CJ Stroud? I think they have to, because unless they pick up some quarterback in the draft that just wows everyone, I don't know that CJ Stroud, A, is going to go anywhere. B, I don't know if he's going to get back to where he was his rookie year. I wasn't sold his rookie year, but he was good. He was exciting. It was nice to see a rookie playing as well as he did. But the Texans have to take a good long look at their quarterback position, because what caused them to exit the playoffs this year? A loss, or a 4-interception game by CJ Stroud. Okay, someone just said that the Freddie Peralta thing, I hope no one's messing with me, because I don't want to miss this news. I don't see anything yet. Oh, no, it hasn't gone through yet, but I did get a push notification that they're close. They are close to getting something. Okay. All right. Naomi Osaka. Now, if you missed it earlier, she was at the Australian Open, and she came out in an outfit. Now, I just want to say, because people weren't happy with me earlier about my opinion on this, I do take this stuff very seriously. I know how serious mental health issues are. I have said this on the air before, and I'm getting serious now because I do feel strongly about this. But there was a point in my life where I didn't know, I wanted to be here anymore. So I understand why talking mental health and having opinions on mental health are not a laughing matter at all. But one thing that you should know about me is that I'm not afraid to say when I'm wrong. I might take a little while to turn the corner, but ultimately, if I'm wrong, I will admit it. So here is where I made a mistake earlier. Thought about it, and I wanted to say I shouldn't have said her outfit was ugly. And that's my fault, and that's not okay for me to say, because I ultimately am just feeding into and being the person that Naomi Osaka struggled with, and she struggled with attention, so I'm bringing negative attention to her. That was my mistake. I should not have put her down for my own gain. And I know that all mental health situations are different. I know that everybody deals with things in certain ways. And so if you don't know, in 2020 or early 2020s, Naomi Osaka had to step away from the game for a little bit because she was having mental health issues. She was overwhelmed by the media. She was overwhelmed with things that were happening in her career. So she stepped away a little bit. And the reason I even brought this is because I saw an opinion this morning from Boris Becker, who I didn't realize was not the greatest guy himself. So I kind of backed a not great guy. But Boris Becker said it's a contradiction because now she wants the attention. And I don't as someone who doesn't like attention outside of this job, I don't know that I would just go and one day just walk into work looking, putting on a tux that looked like a jellyfish. I'm not going to make fun of her anymore, but I am serious about the fact that I do worry about things with her going forward, because mental health is not something that just goes away. You have to really, really, really work at it. I've worked on it every day, and I think everybody should have a therapist. I think everybody should go and get some help and talk to someone. Gonzo says it shouldn't be this big a deal. Maybe, yeah, it should be. It shouldn't be this big a deal. I think my opinion, maybe came out a little bit too harsh. So I would like to apologize to Naomi Osaka for making fun of her, outfit. And I do take it seriously. And I'm not someone who likes to put people down at all. All right, that wasn't as scary as I thought it was. But when I see people who are angry with me, I feel like I have to address it. All right, it's officially official now. The New York Mets have acquired all-star right-hander Freddie Peralta in a trade with the Milwaukee Brewers, sources tell ESPN. Deal is done. Top prospect Jet Williams and Brandon Sproat are headed to Milwaukee. One more big league pitcher will head to the Mets. Well, at least Freddie Peralta is not going to the National League West in a different uniform than the Padres. Like, that is a good thing. Freddie Peralta is a good pitcher, but I really wanted the Padres to be in on that. I did. I thought he would fit well with the Padres, but he is now a Met, and we don't have to worry about seeing him, 13 times a year? All right, here's the Daily Gripe today. And it's kind of gross, so stick with me. I'm trying to make sure I have all this news before I sign off the show, but I think we basically got the news. Mets have acquired Freddie Peralta from the Brewers. All right, here's the Daily Gripe. So Wednesday is, dog waste day. I go in the backyard and I pick it all up. And I deal with it, and I hate doing it. I hate everything to do with and I'll just say it, poop scoop day. I call it the poop scoop day. I hate everything about it. But what I hate most is when I accidentally step in it. And that is my Daily Gripe. So today I was walking around the backyard. I didn't see it, and I stepped in it, and I didn't know I stepped in it. And so I was walking around with this all on my shoe for a long, long time. And I even walked inside with it on my shoe. And then I realized what was on my shoe because I was making my lunch, and I was like, why does it smell so bad in here? And I looked at my foot, and I had dog poo all over my shoe. So that's my Daily Gripe, is when I accidentally step in that and I don't realize it and track it all over the house, tracking it all over the backyard. But it's gross. And cleaning a shoe off that has, when you've stepped in that is not easy. And I feel like you can never get that shoe clean again. At least I don't feel like you can get that shoe clean again. Johnny says, did you pause a second and sniff thinking it was you and not your shoe? No. I usually smell pretty good. Zen Lighting says, this is why you don't wear shoes inside. Kind of agree. Get a stick for the shoes, Rod says. I know. I've tried. I even just took the hose to it. All those crevices. Ugh. All right. That's it for the Skraby Show. Thank you to everybody who joined me. Thank you to everybody who broke the Freddie Peralta news for me to keep on track. We'll be back tomorrow. And we have a special Padres Pen Pals. So make sure you tune in right at 2 p.m. for Gwen and Chris. Have a good night, everybody.